Hi, my name is Jason, and I am a children's librarian. Today we're going to have a science class, so welcome to Jason's Science Corner. Before we get started, real quick question, what is science? Bare bones, simple explanation. Science is knowledge about or study of the natural world based on facts, learned through experimentation and observation. It is important to note that answers and information about science can and will change based on the discovery of new information. That means it's totally okay for scientists at point A in time to say we understand this to be the truth, and then through a period of experimentation and observation realize that they in fact weren't correct at point B and change their mind and say at point B, nope, actually, this is what we understand now based on the new information and our observations. So it's totally okay for science to think one thing at one point and then discover new facts and change their statements. That's how it's supposed to work. So today we're going to talk about astronomy. Astronomy is the study of everything in the universe beyond Earth's atmosphere. That includes objects we can see with just our eyes, like the sun, the moon, the planets, and the stars. It also includes objects we can see only with telescopes or other instruments, like faraway galaxies and tiny little particles. And that definition comes to us today from the American Museum for Natural History. Shout out to Neil deGrasse Tyson. I don't know if he wrote that. It's his museum. This is an image of our solar system, or more specifically, the sun and the planets in our solar system. As you can see, there are 8 planets. There is also, not pictured in this image, an asteroid belt, and that exists between Mars and Jupiter. This also isn't to scale. Just a quick image of what we're going to look at. I'm not going to get into it later, so I'll talk about it now. The asteroid belt is it's like a belt. It's a wide chunk of space that's filled with floating rocks of different shapes and sizes. There's also some other stuff in there we'll hear a little bit more about later. It's hard to wrap your brain around it. Kind of think of it like a moat in space. It's a flat shape, and it's a ribbon, and it encompasses all the planets and the sun up to Mars, and Jupiter and everything past it are on the other side of that moat. So as I mentioned, there are 8 planets in our solar system. 6 of them have been known since ancient times. The 2 that aren't are Neptune and Uranus. And these planets are divided into 2 main groups, the terrestrial planets and the gas giants. The terrestrial planets are 4 small rocky planets located between the sun and the asteroid belt. Those planets are Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars. The gas giants are 4 large gaseous planets located outside the asteroid belt. And gaseous planets means that they don't have a surface like we do. They're mostly comprised of dense gases floating around, like clouds, kind of. Those planets are Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. And actually, the last 2 are, while gas giants, they're frozen gas giants. So they're kind of ice giants. And beyond those is the Kuiper Belt, which is similar to the asteroid belt, but much, much larger. And instead of being home to rocky asteroids, it's home to icy comets and to dwarf planets. It consists mainly of small bodies or remnants from when the solar system was formed. And we're mentioning this over the asteroid belt because it's kind of important to I'm sure, a lot of the grown-ups that are getting angry at me right now for only saying 8 planets. But we'll get there. We also have dwarf planets. So a dwarf planet is a celestial body that is in orbit around the sun. It has sufficient mass for its self-gravity to overcome rigid body forces, so it assumes a hydrostatic equilibrium. That's a big fancy word that means nearly round, shaped like a ball, shape. And so that technically, those two first things include all the planets, all the major planets, the Mercury through Neptune, all fit under those. But the thing that sets dwarf planets aside from full status planets is dwarf planets have not cleared the neighborhood around its orbit. And that means like there is a dwarf planet in the asteroid belt. And instead of gathering the asteroids into moons or something, it just kind of lives with the asteroids. And that's why Pluto is considered a dwarf planet, because there's a lot of stuff in its front yard, I guess. And it never managed to make space for itself. Also, to note, dwarf planets is not a satellite. I mean, like a moon, because there's a couple of moons that are bigger than some of the smaller planets. So again, to reiterate, a dwarf planet orbits the sun, has sufficient mass, which means it's big enough for its own gravity to smoosh it into a ball shape. It is not the moon of another planet, and it has not cleared the neighborhood around its orbit. There are 5 major dwarf planets that we have identified. They are Ceres, which is located in the asteroid belt and has been visited by a human-made probe. There is Pluto, which up until 2006 was considered a planet, which was only about 76 years from the time it was discovered to the time that we changed our minds, because we had new information based on experimentation and observation. There's also Haumea. It is located in the Kuiper Belt, and it is unique because it is squished. It's like if you took a big round balloon and smooshed it a little bit on the top and bottom so that its sides came out. And we think that it is shaped like that because of how fast it rotates on its axis, like we do for night and day. It goes really fast. We think it's kind of smooshed it out a little bit. There's also Makemake. It is located in the Kuiper Belt as well, and Eris, which is one of the biggest ones, and it is also located in the Kuiper Belt. It's the farthest away we've noticed, I believe. So real quick, looking at the major planets, we have Mercury. It is the smallest planet. It is the closest to the sun. It takes 87.97 Earth days to go around the sun. So its year is about 3 months for us. It doesn't have much of an atmosphere, which means that it can get as cold as negative 280 degrees Fahrenheit at night and as hot as 800 degrees Fahrenheit during the day. And I know those numbers are really big and hard to imagine, but the coldest winter that I can remember in living in New York City, and everything was icy and it hurt to go outside, that was maybe 15 degrees, negative 15 degrees Fahrenheit. And the hottest summer I've ever experienced, where you can't be outside without getting sick, was maybe 114 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's a lot of numbers between what we can handle, what I've seen that makes people sick, and what Mercury does. We would not be able to live there if we went and visited. The second planet is Venus. It is roughly the same size as Earth, and some people call it our twin. It is the second brightest object in the night sky after the moon. It is sometimes called the morning star. It orbits the sun every 224.7 Earth days, so that's not quite a full year for us. Maybe, I can't do that math, maybe like 9 months. It is very hot and acidic, the atmosphere. The atmosphere is full of sulfuric acid and too much carbon and greenhouse gases. Uh, so some people like to, Venus formed that way naturally, but it is a good cautionary tale about carbon in our atmosphere and global climate change. We don't want to turn into Venus. Everything would die. The third planet is the Earth. It is our home. It is mostly water. The orbit around the sun takes 365 days, and we only have one moon. The fourth planet is called Mars. Some people call it the red planet. It is one of the planets we have spent the most time looking at because it's close by and easy for us to get to. It's not as volatile as Mercury or Venus. It does have frozen water on it. It has 2 moons, Phobos and Deimos, and its orbit takes 687 Earth days. The next thing we have in the solar system would be the asteroid belt and the dwarf planet Ceres, but we're going to skip them and go to Jupiter, which is the largest planet in our solar system and the 5th major planet. It is 2.5 times as big as all 7 other planets combined. It's massive. It has 79 known moons. 4 of them are known as Galilean moons because Galileo was able to observe them with his telescope. They are the largest and the best known. They are also the first known moons of a planet other than Earth. That's pretty cool. Those moons are called Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto. Jupiter's orbit takes 11.8 Earth years. It takes almost 12 years for Jupiter to go around the sun from our point of view. The next planet is pretty famous because it's got some beautiful rings, and that is Saturn. It is the last of the ancient known planets. It's the furthest away planet we can see with just our eyes. And as famous as those rings are and as beautiful as they were not discovered by humans until 1610, when Galileo first used a telescope for astronomy. It has 82 known moons, the largest of which is called Titan. It is the 2nd largest moon in the solar system, and it is larger than the planet Mercury. It's also the only known moon to have a substantial atmosphere. And Saturn takes 29.5 Earth years to go around the sun. The next planet in line is Uranus, or Uranus. It was discovered in 1781. It is a gas giant, but it's also frozen, so we sometimes refer to it as an ice giant. It is unique in that its rotational axis is sideways. Most planets you can kind of think of like this, and then they spin this way, and Uranus kind of does it like this. It has 27 known moons. Many of them are named after Shakespearean characters, which I think is pretty cool as a former theater kid. And it takes Uranus 84 years to go around the sun from Earth's point of view. Neptune is the last of the major planets. It was discovered in 1846. And interesting note, it was discovered by mathematical prediction and not empirical observation. Those are some big words, but it means that someone was observing the solar system and noticed that objects weren't behaving the way that they would behave based on a prediction that only included the objects up to Uranus. And so they did some math and discovered there should be a planet right here. And then when they had a telescope strong enough to find it, they found out that they were right and were able to use that math to find Neptune. So empirical observation means that we looked up and we found it first. We were able to see it with our eyes. but Neptune was discovered using math. Neptune has 14 known moons. The largest and best known is Triton. And Neptune takes 164.8 Earth years to go around the sun. And I didn't forget Pluto. Like I said, a lot of grown-ups have some strong feelings about Pluto being demoted from major planet to dwarf planet. But as we discussed at the beginning of our lesson, science information can and will change based on the discovery of new information. Pluto was discovered in 1930 and was changed in classification from planet to dwarf planet in 2006. And the push for that change was new information. It was the dwarf planet Eris, which is even further into the Kuiper Belt than Pluto, but also much bigger. And the discussion was, do we count Eris as a 10th planet, or do we reconsider other things? And then we looked at Ceres and Eris and Pluto and the other dwarf planets, and made the classification change that a planet needs to clear out its local orbit area to qualify for major planet status. And since all those other things exist in other fields, they're dwarf planets. Its orbit is inclined and eccentric, which means that it's kind of long and skinny and tilted. Most of the other planets go around the sun on a flat disk, and Pluto kind of goes like this. And that means that it kind of will sometimes come inside Pluto's orbit, but while it's inside Pluto's orbit, it's actually above it. So there's no chance that they're going to smash into each other. Pluto has 5 known moons. The largest is called Charon, and it is half the size of Pluto. So it's almost a binary planet. And it takes Pluto 247.9 Earth years to go around the sun. That's a very long time. None of us will be around to see Pluto get back to where it is in the sky. So if you are interested in astronomy and our local neighborhood, aka the solar system, how can you learn more? How can you do your own science? You can take some classes. You can contact your local library, see if they have astronomy information. They definitely have books. Some libraries might have programs about it. You can also go online and see if your region has an amateur astronomers club. A lot of them do. They might not be meeting until after it's safe to do so and the pandemic clears up a bit. You can also learn yourself in your backyard. Go grab some of those books from the library, put them on hold, go pick them up at curbside, and find a telescope. What's a telescope? A telescope is a tool we use to observe distant bodies in space. There are 2 basic types. There's the refractor, which means it uses a lens, and reflector, which means it uses mirrored telescopes. And the pictures I have down here, the little skinny blue one is a refractor telescope, and the big white one is a reflector telescope. There are variations within these 2 types, and there are other types, but these are the 2 big ones, especially for amateur astronomers. The way telescopes work is they've got a big opening of the tube at one end, and it gathers in light, and it focuses it either using a lens or mirrors through a smaller opening, which is the eyepiece, and you can use that. So essentially it's a tool to make your eyes bigger, because we see by gathering light, and if we want to see a far away object in space, the way we see them is by the reflected or emitted light, and telescopes will help us gather that light and magnify it, and they're pretty cool. That's our lesson for today. Quick, brief introduction to the solar system, how telescopes work, and what is astronomy. There is a lot more to learn. If you are interested, I definitely encourage you to check out some books from your local library on astronomy or one of the planets specifically if you have some specific questions like, why are there so many robots on Mars? What are the rings of Saturn made out of? There's some good questions that you can read up on, and I think that it would be fun to do so. So good luck, good observing. Remember, science is the study of our natural world and how it works through experimentation and observation. And it's okay to change your mind when you have discovered new information. I hope you all have a great day.